I unlocked the front door of my own house without making a sound, and what I saw froze me in my tracks. My daughter-in-law was sitting at the dining room table calmly eating a pot roast that my wife had started cooking early that morning. Meanwhile, Mary, my partner of 42 years, was washing dishes with trembling hands, not from nerves, but from the cold, because someone had turned off the heating in the middle of December in Chicago. Suddenly, as if she owned the place, my daughter-in-law snatched the plate right out of Mary's hands and screamed at her with a voice I had never heard before. "Leave those dirty dishes and get me more food now." My wife lowered her head without saying a word and walked toward the stove like she was an employee in her own kitchen. I stood there behind the living room door, feeling the blood rush to my head. In that moment, without either of them seeing me, I took out my cell phone and dialed my son Ryan's number. I did not say anything. I just waited. 5 minutes later, everything in that house changed forever. But before I tell you how I unmasked that woman and discovered the nightmare living under my own roof, I want to ask you something. Leave me a comment down below and tell me where you are listening from. Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, or maybe from across the pond. I would like to know that this story reaches many people because what I'm about to tell you did not just happen to me. It can happen to anyone, especially those of us who are older and trust our family too much. My name is William Parker. I am 63 years old. I was born and raised in Chicago, although I lived many years in the city for work. I am a civil engineer by trade, although I have been retired for 5 years. For more than 30 years, I worked on major projects: bridges, highways, corporate buildings. I earned well, very well. I am not going to brag, but I will be honest. I have properties, 3 houses, one here in the suburbs, where I live with Mary, another in Florida that we rent out, and a smaller one in Madison that belonged to my parents. I have investments in banks, some stocks, 2 plots of land in a developing area, and a pretty solid retirement fund. I am not a millionaire, but I do not have to worry about money either. I worked hard all my life to give my children what I never had. Mary and I married young. She was 20. I was 21. We had 2 children, Ryan, who is now 38, and Jessica, who is 35. Ryan studied business administration and for 10 years has managed a logistics company that does quite well. Jessica is a graphic designer. She lives in Madison with her husband and her 2 kids. We were always a close family, or so I thought. Ryan got married 6 years ago to a woman named Danielle. When he introduced her to me, I did not dislike her. She was polite, pretty, spoke well. She came from a middle-class family from Ohio. She worked in human resources for a multinational company. Everything seemed fine. Mary was happy to have a daughter-in-law. I was too. We helped them with the down payment on their condo. We gave them furniture. We invited them to lunch every Sunday. We were what you would call a normal family. But a year ago, something started to change. It all began when Ryan lost a big contract at his company. He did not go bankrupt, but he did have to cut staff and adjust expenses. Danielle, for her part, quit her job. She said she was tired, that she wanted to start her own business, that she needed a break. Ryan told me this with some concern, but I told him not to worry. That money comes and goes, that the important thing was health and family. I even lent them a considerable amount to cover a few months. While they stabilized, it was a loan, not a gift. That was clear. We signed a promissory note. Everything legal. From that moment on, Danielle started coming around our house more. At first, it seemed normal. She would come to eat, to chat with Mary. Sometimes she stayed to watch TV. But then she started arriving alone without Ryan. She said he was busy, that he had meetings, that he was out of town. And Mary, who has always been very noble, received her with open arms. She made her food, listened to her, gave her advice. Back then, I still went out often. I went to the club to play cards with my friends, visited the properties, did paperwork. I was not home all the time, But about 4 months ago, I started noticing strange things. One day I came home early from an appointment with the accountant and found Danielle sitting in the home office, my office, where I keep my desk, my documents, my personal files. She was in front of the computer. When she saw me, she closed the screen quickly and told me that Mary had asked her to look up a recipe on the internet. It seemed strange to me because the computer in the office is mine and there's a laptop in the living room that we use for those things, but I did not give it much importance. Not yet. Another time, about 2 weeks later, Mary mentioned that Danielle had asked her if we had a will. Just like that, out of nowhere. During lunch, she told her that it was important to have everything in order, that she and Ryan had already made theirs, that it was an act of responsibility. Mary told me this as something curious, without giving it much weight, but it struck me as odd. Why is a 32-year-old woman so interested in her in-laws? Then came the questions about the properties, asking if the house in Florida was in both our names, asking if the lands had deeds, asking if we had thought about selling something because the market was good right now. I answered her politely, but it made me more uncomfortable each time. It was not normal. Not for someone who supposedly just came to keep her mother-in-law company. Then something happened that really set off my alarms. One day I went to Madison to visit Jessica. I stayed the night there. I returned the next afternoon. When I arrived at the house, I found it silent. Mary was sitting in the living room, quiet, with red eyes. I asked her what was wrong. She told me nothing, that she was tired. But I know my wife. 42 years of marriage are not in vain, I insisted. And then with much embarrassment, she told me that Danielle had scolded her. Scolded, I said. What do you mean, scolded? Yes. William, she told me that I should not be giving things away without consulting them, that we are elderly and do not know how to manage ourselves. Giving away, what did you give away? Nothing. I gave $20 to old Mr. Jenkins the gardener because he asked for a loan for some medicine, and she found out because she was here when he came. I froze. Danielle had scolded Mary in her own house for helping a lifelong worker. I felt an immense rage, but I held back. I told Mary that it would not happen again, that I was going to talk to Ryan, but I did not talk to him. Not yet, because something inside me told me to wait, to observe, not to act on impulse. And so I started spending more time at home. Danielle's visits became more frequent and longer. She would arrive in the morning and leave at night. Sometimes she did not even leave. She would stay to sleep in the guest room. She said Ryan was traveling. I verified with him by text, and he was indeed away, but it seemed strange to me that she preferred to stay with us instead of being in her own home. I started observing her behavior with Mary, and I did not like anything I saw. Danielle asked her for things, all the time. Make her coffee, iron a blouse for her, heat up her food, bring her this, take that away. And Mary, who has always been helpful, did it without complaining. But I saw her face. I saw the exhaustion. I saw the discomfort. And one day I saw her tremble. It was exactly 3 weeks before the day I walked into the house and saw everything. Danielle was sitting in the dining room talking on the phone. Mary was washing dishes. I was in the living room reading the paper. Suddenly I heard Danielle raise her voice. "No, Mom. I told you I am not going back to work. What for Ryan has enough to support us. And besides, his parents have a ton of money." "We will see later." My skin crawled. "We will see later." What did that mean? That night when Danielle left, I spoke with Mary. "Have you noticed anything strange about her?" I asked. Mary took a moment to answer. "Sometimes I feel like she treats me like her maid William. But I do not want to cause problems. She is Ryan's wife. That does not give her the right to treat you badly. This is your house. You are the lady of this house. I know. But I do not want Ryan to get upset with me." "Ryan is not going to get upset. He loves you. And if I tell him what is happening, he will put a stop to it." But Mary asked me not to say anything. Yet, she asked me to wait, that maybe it was just a bad streak, that Danielle was stressed about their economic situation. I accepted, but I decided to investigate on my own. The next day after Danielle left, I checked my desk. Everything was in order, but I noticed something. One of the drawers was slightly open. I always leave them closed. Always. I opened the drawer. Inside were my important documents. Deeds, contracts, insurance policies. Everything was still there. But something was out of place. The folders were in a different order. Someone had gone through my documents. That same afternoon, without telling anyone, I went to my bank. I asked for a statement of movements for the last 6 months. Everything was normal, nothing strange. But I asked if anyone had requested information about my accounts. The executive checked and told me no, that everything was in order. I left the bank with a weird feeling. There was no evidence of anything. But my instinct told me something bad was happening. 2 days later, Mary confessed something to me that made my hair stand on end. We were eating dinner alone. Danielle had not come that day. Mary was quiet. Suddenly, without me asking anything, she said, "Danielle asked me if you had life insurance." "What?" "Yes. She told me that she and Ryan were thinking about getting insurance, and she wanted to know if we had one to compare options." "And what did you tell her?" "I told her yes, that we have had one for years. One that you got when you worked at the construction firm." I stayed silent. "The life insurance. Of course I had it. A robust policy, with beneficiaries. Mary, Ryan, and Jessica, in equal parts. $500,000 in case I was missing." "Did you tell her the amount?" "No, I just said we had one." "And did she insist?" "No. She just said that is good and changed the subject." That night I could not sleep. Life insurance, questions about wills, reviewing documents, changes in how she treated Mary. Everything was starting to form a pattern I did not like at all. The next day I decided to do something I never thought I would do. I put security cameras in the house. I told Mary it was for security because houses in the neighborhood had been broken into. She did not suspect anything. I hired a technician, and in one day he installed 4 cameras. One in the living room, one in the dining room, one in the kitchen, and one in the hallway, leading to the bedrooms. All discreet and all with audio, and all connected to an app on my cell phone. For a week, nothing relevant happened. Danielle came and went. Mary went about her normal life. I reviewed the recordings every night. But then that day arrived. The day I entered my house and everything changed. That morning I left early. I had an appointment with a lawyer to review a matter regarding one of the plots of land. I told Mary I would be back around 3 in the afternoon. Danielle arrived close to 10. I saw it on the cameras from my cell phone while I waited at the law firm. She arrived with a small suitcase. She stayed for breakfast. Mary made her omelets. Everything seemed normal. But around noon I saw something that froze my blood. Danielle went into the office, alone. She closed the door, and although the hallway camera could not see inside, it did record the audio. I heard her opening drawers, moving papers, mumbling something. And then I heard her talking on the phone. "Almost there, Mom. I almost have everything." "Yes. I found the deeds. The 3 properties are in his name. But if something happens, Mary inherits everything. So the plan has to be different." My breath caught in my throat. "Different how?" I heard her ask someone on the other end. "Well, it has to look accidental. Both of them. Or at least her first. If she is not here, Ryan inherits directly, and Ryan is mine." I could not believe it. I could not believe it. I canceled the appointment with the lawyer. I got into my truck and drove at full speed back home. I arrived in 20 minutes. I parked outside on the street, not in the garage. I did not want them to hear the engine. I entered through the front door with my key without making a sound, and that was when I saw it. Danielle was sitting at the table, eating calmly. Mary was washing dishes, trembling, and then Danielle snatched the plate from her hands and screamed at her to get more food. I stood paralyzed, but only for a second, because in that moment I knew exactly what I had to do. I took out my cell phone and called Ryan. I did not say anything. I just left the line open, so he could hear everything. I left the phone in my pocket with the call open. Ryan was on the other end listening to everything in silence. I could see the screen lit up from the edge of my pocket. The call was still active. I took a deep breath and walked into the dining room slowly, as if nothing had happened. "Good afternoon," I said with a calm but firm voice. Mary looked up immediately. Her eyes lit up with relief upon seeing me, but also with some fear. Danielle, for her part, did not even turn around. She kept eating as if I did not exist, as if this were not my house. "William, did you arrive early?" Mary said with a trembling voice, drying her hands on her apron. "Yes, the appointment was canceled. Is everything okay here?" Danielle finally turned around. She looked at me with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Everything is perfect, William. Mary was making me a delicious lunch. She is such a good hostess." The way she said hostess disgusted me, as if Mary were a hotel employee and not the owner of this house. "That is good," I replied. "Mary, my love, can you come here a moment? I need you to help me with something in the bedroom." Mary nodded quickly, took off her apron, and walked toward me. Danielle watched us leave without saying anything, but I noticed how she clenched her jaw. She did not like that I interrupted her power show. We went into the bedroom, and I closed the door. Mary looked at me with teary eyes. "William, Relax," I told her, hugging her. "I know everything. I know what is happening, and I promise you, this ends today." "What are you going to do?" "What I should have done weeks ago, but I need you to trust me." "Can you do that?" She nodded, trembling in my arms. I kissed her on the forehead and told her to stay there, not to come out until I told her. I left the bedroom and went back to the dining room. Danielle was still eating now, looking at her cell phone with a mocking smile on her lips. I sat down across from her. "Danielle, I need to speak with you." She looked up still with that fake smile. "Sure, William, tell me." "I want to know why you are treating Mary like that." The smile vanished immediately. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. Why do you scream at her? Why do you treat her like she's your servant?" Danielle put the fork down on the plate and leaned back in the chair, crossing her arms. "I do not know what you are talking about, William. I have not screamed at anyone. I saw you, and I heard you. 5 minutes ago you snatched a plate from her hands and screamed at her to bring you more food." "Oh, that," she laughed. "I was playing. Mary knows I'm like that. There is nothing wrong with it." "Playing?" I felt the rage rising in my chest. "Mary is not your toy. She is my wife, and this is her house." Danielle looked at me with an expression I had never seen on her. Cold, calculating, totally different from the polite woman I met 6 years ago. "Look, William, I do not know what Mary told you, but she exaggerates a lot. I come here to keep her company because you two are alone. Ryan works all day. I could be at my house relaxing, but I come to take care of you. Take care of us." I leaned forward. "Or to check my documents." She went pale, just for a second, but it was enough. "I do not know what you are talking about." "The drawer in my office, the folders you moved, the deeds you reviewed. I never. And the call you made today, from my office, 2 hours ago." She went completely silent. Her eyes moved fast, looking for a way out, an excuse, but I was not going to let her lie any more. "What did you say?" I continued. "Ah, yes, I remember. It has to look accidental. Both of them, or at least her first." Danielle stood up abruptly, knocking over the chair. "You are crazy. I do not know what you heard or what you invented, but you are completely crazy. I have recordings, Danielle, cameras with audio, in the whole house." Her face went from anger to terror in a second. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. "Did you think I was not going to notice that I was going to let you hurt Mary? That I was going to stay quiet while you and whoever is helping you plan to harm us to keep our money? Not me. I did not plan anything. Do not lie to me, I shouted, and my voice echoed through the whole house. I heard everything. I know exactly what you were planning. Danielle backed away with trembling hands, but then her expression changed. That coldness again. That mask fell completely. Fine, she said with a calm voice, almost indifferent. And what are you going to do? Call the police. Tell them what? That your daughter-in-law talked on the phone. I did nothing illegal, William. Nothing. You entered my office without permission. You reviewed private documents. You threatened my wife's life. Prove it, she smiled. Recordings are useless if I did not know I was being recorded. It is illegal to record someone without their consent. Any lawyer will tell you that. And about the call, I can say I was joking. That I was talking about a movie, a book, whatever. I stayed silent because she was right. Legally, she had not done anything yet that could put her in jail, but I was not going to let her get away with it. You are right, I told her. You have not done anything yet, but I am going to do something. Oh, really, what? I'm going to talk to Ryan. I'm going to tell him everything, and you are going to get out of this house, right now. Danielle let out a laugh, a real laugh full of mockery. Ryan? Do you think Ryan is going to believe you over me? Oh, William, how naive you are. Ryan does what I tell him. He always has. If I tell him that you are inventing things because you are jealous of our relationship, he will believe me. If I tell him that Mary is senile and that you are too, he will believe me, because he loves me. And you too. You are just his old parents. Those words hurt me more than any physical blow, but I was not going to let her see me weak. Well, you're going to have to say all that to his face, I responded, because he has been listening to this conversation for 10 minutes. I took the cell phone out of my pocket and showed it to her. The call was still active. 10 minutes and 43 seconds. Danielle froze completely. Her face went from mockery to absolute panic. No, no. In that moment, the front door burst open. Ryan entered like a storm with his cell phone still in his hand, his face red with rage and eyes full of tears. What the hell is this, Danielle? He screamed with a voice I had never heard. What the hell did you just say about my parents? Danielle tried to run to him with her hands out with that victim face she surely used every time she needed to manipulate him. Baby, no. Listen to me, your dad is... Do not touch me. Ryan pushed her away with his arm. I heard everything. Everything. I heard you say you wanted something accidental to happen to them. I heard you mock them. I heard you treat them like trash. Ryan, I was joking. You were not joking, and you know it. I know you, Danielle. I know when you are lying. Danielle started crying, but they were fake tears. Crocodile tears. I recognized them immediately. Baby, please let me explain. There is nothing to explain. Ryan was trembling with anger. How long have you been doing this? How long have you been treating my mom badly? How long have you been planning whatever you were planning? Danielle did not answer. She just cried and cried, but her eyes were empty. There was no regret, only fear of consequences. Ryan turned to me. Dad, forgive me. Forgive me for not noticing, for not coming more often, for not... Relax, son, I said, putting a hand on his shoulder. It is not your fault. Yes, it is. I should have seen the signs. I should have noticed how she treated you. Mary came out of the bedroom in that moment. Ryan saw her and his voice broke. Mom, forgive me. Mary ran to him and hugged him. They cried together. I felt a knot in my throat, but I held back. It was not time to cry yet. We were not finished yet. Danielle tried to leave the house, but I stood in the way. No, you are not leaving until this is cleared up completely. You cannot keep me here. That is kidnapping. I'm not keeping you. I'm just asking you to stay until someone arrives. Who? In that moment, the doorbell rang. I opened the door. It was Attorney Henry Davis, my lifelong lawyer. I had called him an hour earlier when I heard the recording of Danielle talking on the phone. I asked him to come immediately, and there he was. Good afternoon, William, Henry said, entering with his leather briefcase. Is this the situation you told me about? Exactly. Henry looked at Danielle, then at Ryan, then at Mary. He evaluated everything in 2 seconds. Very well. Let's all sit down and talk calmly, because this can be resolved in 2 ways, the easy way or the hard way. And it is in everyone's best interest that it be the easy way. Danielle was still standing by the door, trembling. Ryan looked at her with a mix of sadness and disgust. Mary was clinging to my arm, and I just wanted this to end. We sat in the living room. Henry opened his briefcase and took out a recorder. With everyone's permission, I am going to record this conversation. It is legal because everyone present is being notified. Does anyone object? No one said anything. Perfect. Henry pressed the button. Today, December 13th, we are gathered at the home of Mr. William Parker. Present are William Parker, Mary Parker, Ryan Parker, and Danielle. He paused. Excuse me, what is your full maiden name? Smith. Danielle Smith, she mumbled. Danielle Smith. Perfect. Mr. Parker, could you briefly explain the situation? I told him everything. From the first signs to today's recording. Henry took notes without interrupting. When I finished, he turned to Danielle. Mrs. Smith, do you have anything to say about this? Danielle stayed quiet. Ma'am, it is in your interest to speak, because right now, all we have are indications. But if you do not cooperate, we are going to have to take more severe legal measures, and believe me, you do not want that. Danielle looked up. Her eyes were red but dry. She was not crying anymore. I just wanted to make sure Ryan and I would be okay financially. He lost a lot of money with his company, and so you decided to investigate your in-laws' assets without their consent. Henry interrupted. It was not like that. Then how was it? Because we have recordings of you reviewing private documents. We have recordings of you talking on the phone about making something look accidental. We have testimony of mistreatment toward Mrs. Parker. How was it then? Danielle clenched her fists. Okay, yes. I reviewed the documents. Yes, I wanted to know how much money they had, because I have a right to know what we are going to live on when they are gone. When they are gone? Henry raised an eyebrow. Do you mean when they pass away naturally? Or when you help them pass away? I never said that. The recording says otherwise. Danielle stood up abruptly. I was not going to do anything. I was just talking. My mom and I always talk about weird things. It was a joke. A joke about planning the death of 2 people. Henry closed his notebook. Mrs. Smith, you have 2 options. Option 1. You sign a document where you renounce any right to the Parker family assets. You commit to not approaching this house or Mary without supervision, and you accept that your marriage to Ryan will be dissolved immediately. Option 2. We file a formal complaint for threats, extortion, attempted fraud, and let the law take its course. Which do you prefer? Danielle looked at Ryan, looking for support, but Ryan just looked at her with disappointment. Ryan, she whispered, you are not going to let them do this, right? Ryan took a moment to answer. When he did, his voice was broken. I heard everything, Danielle. I heard how you talked about my parents. I heard how you treated them, and although it hurts me to admit it, I do not recognize you anymore. I do not know if you were ever the woman I fell in love with, or if you were always this, and I was too blind to see it. Ryan, I love you. No, you love my last name, my inheritance, what you can get from my family. But me, you never loved me. Danielle tried to speak, but she had no arguments left. Henry extended a document to her. Sign here, here, and here. Danielle took the pen with trembling hands, read the complete document. 2 pages, renunciations, commitments, clauses, all written with legal precision. In the end, she signed. Perfect, said Henry, putting away the document. From this moment on, you have no legal right over the Parker family assets. You also cannot come within 100 yards of this property. If you breach this, we will proceed legally. Understood. Danielle nodded with a lost gaze. You may leave. Danielle stood up, walked toward the door. Before leaving, she turned one last time. Ryan, goodbye, Danielle. The door closed, and with it closed a dark chapter of our lives. But it was not all over. Because the next day I discovered something that made me understand Danielle was not acting alone. That night, after Henry left and Ryan stayed to sleep with us, I reviewed the complete recordings from the cameras. I wanted to see everything, understand everything. I needed to know how deep the betrayal went. I found something disturbing. 3 weeks ago, Danielle had brought someone to the house, a woman about 50 years old. I'd never seen her. In the recording, the two went into the office while Mary was napping. The woman reviewed documents along with Danielle. They spoke in low voices, but the audio captured fragments. These lands are worth at least $200,000 each, if we sell at the right moment. And the insurance? $500,000. But only if he dies first. If she dies, it gets complicated. So we have to wait for the moment. The woman was her mother, I was sure. Danielle had mentioned her mom in the call I intercepted. The two were planning this together. The next day I hired a private investigator. I gave him all the data I had. Full name of Danielle, address, phone number, family data. I asked him to investigate everything. Records, debts, bank movements, everything. 4 days later, the investigator returned with a 30-page report. Danielle and her mother had a history. 3 years ago, Danielle's mother had been involved in a fraud case against an elderly couple in Ohio. Nothing was ever proven, but the civil lawsuit existed. Danielle, for her part, had been married before. Her first husband had sued her for identity theft and misuse of credit cards. The case was closed for lack of evidence, but the record was there. Ryan was devastated when I showed him the report. He cried for hours. He could not believe the woman he had shared 6 years of his life with was capable of so much. But there was more. The investigator discovered that Danielle had debts, lots of them. Credit cards, personal loans, pawn shops, more than $20,000 in total. And her mother was the same. That is why they needed money fast. That is why the plan. With all that information, Henry prepared a formal lawsuit. Not just against Danielle, but also against her mother for criminal conspiracy and conspiracy to commit fraud. We presented it to the district attorney, and although we knew the process would be long, at least we had solid evidence. Ryan started the divorce process that same week. There was no reconciliation, no attempts to fix things. Danielle hired a lawyer, but with the document she had signed, she did not have much to do. The divorce was granted in 3 months. Meanwhile, the investigation by the DA moved forward. Danielle and her mother were summoned to testify several times. They tried to deny everything, but the recordings were overwhelming. The expert analysis confirmed the voices in the audio were theirs. The documents in the office had Danielle's fingerprints. Everything fit. 6 months after the day I entered my house and saw everything the judge handed down, the sentence. Danielle, 3 years in prison for attempted fraud threats and trespassing. Her mother 4 years for the criminal conspiracy and attempted fraud. Additionally, both had to pay compensation of $10,000 to Mary for moral and psychological damage. They did not serve the full sentence in prison. They got out on parole after a year, but they were left with criminal records. And that was enough for me because I knew they could never hurt anyone in my family again. Ryan took a long time to recover. He stopped coming to the house for months. Not because he was angry with us, but because he could not face the place where everything had happened. He went to therapy. He cried a lot, but little by little he healed. Mary also suffered. She had nightmares for weeks. She dreamed that Danielle entered the house at night, that she hurt her, that I did not arrive in time. But with time, the nightmares went away, and she returned to being the strong woman I always knew. Me, I learned many things. I learned that family is not always synonymous with loyalty, that there are people capable of anything for money, that no matter how much you love someone, you must always be alert. You must always protect what is yours. And I learned that silence is complicit. If I had not acted that day, if I had stayed quiet, if I had ignored the signs, maybe today I would not be telling this story. Maybe today I would be just another victim. That is why I tell everyone listening, do not ignore your instinct. If something feels wrong, it probably is. If someone in your family, no matter how close, starts behaving strangely, investigate. Ask. Do not stay quiet, because money attracts the wrong people, and sometimes those people are closer than you think. 2 years have passed since that day I entered my house and discovered Danielle's true face. 2 years in which our family changed completely. Not everything was bad. In fact, some things improved. But the road here was not easy, and there were still secrets to discover. Secrets that would make me understand that what we lived through was just the tip of the iceberg. After the sentence, I thought everything was over, that Danielle and her mother would pay their time, that we would continue with our lives, and that this nightmare would remain a bad memory. But I was wrong. 3 months after Danielle got out on parole, strange things started happening. First, it was an anonymous call. I was in the garden pruning the roses when my cell phone rang. Unknown number. Normally, I do not answer those calls, but something made me answer. "Hello?" I said. Silence. Just breathing on the other end. "Who is this?" I insisted. Then I heard a woman's voice, raspy, distorted, like she was speaking through a handkerchief. "William Parker, you think you won, right?" My blood froze. "Who are you?" "Someone who knows a lot about you and your family." "Do you think putting Danielle in jail ended everything? But there are more people involved, many more." "What are you talking about?" "You will find out." "Watch your back, William, and watch Mary, because accidents happen when you least expect them." They hung up. I stood there with the phone in my hand, feeling my heart beating in my ears. I ran into the house and told Mary. She went pale. "Do you think it is Danielle?" she asked me. "I do not know, but I am going to find out." I called Henry immediately. I told him about the call. He recommended reporting it to the police and changing our phone numbers. We did both, but the calls did not stop. Now they came to the house landline. Always different numbers, always the same message. "Watch yourselves. We are watching you." I decided to hire private security. 2 guards who took turns watching the house 24 hours a day. I also installed more cameras. Now outside too. In the garden, in the driveway, in the garage. The house became a fortress. Ryan moved back in with us temporarily. He did not want to leave us alone. Jessica, my daughter, also started coming more often from Madison, sometimes with her kids, sometimes alone. We were all scared, but we were also united, and that gave us strength. It was Ryan who discovered the first clue. One afternoon he was checking his emails when he found something strange. A message from an unknown account with the subject, "Information about Danielle Smith." He opened it carefully. The message said, "If you want to know the truth about your ex-wife, search for the name Sarah Brooks. She can help you. She lives in Evanston. She is an accountant, and she was the one who taught Danielle how to do everything." There was no signature, no additional data, just that. Ryan showed me the email. We decided to investigate. The private investigator I had hired before was still available. I gave him the name Sarah Brooks. I asked him to find everything he could. 2 days later, we had a complete file. Sarah Brooks, 52 years old, certified public accountant, resident of Evanston. No criminal record, but with something very interesting in her history. She had worked for 10 years as a financial advisor at a firm that was shut down for irregularities in managing the assets of elderly people. Several clients had sued her for fraudulent advice, but nothing was ever proven against her. She always came out clean. There was always someone else who took the blame. And most importantly, Sarah Brooks was Danielle's mother's cousin. Everything was starting to fit. Danielle had not planned this alone. Neither had her mother. There was a whole network behind it. A network dedicated to identifying families, with assets infiltrating through marriages or close relationships, and stealing everything they could. I decided to confront Sarah directly. One morning, without telling anyone except Henry, I drove to Evanston. I found the address the investigator had given me, a middle-class apartment building, nothing fancy. I rang the buzzer for 304. A woman with short hair and thin glasses opened the door. "Sarah Brooks?" I asked. She looked at me cautiously. "Who is asking?" "William Parker, Danielle Smith's father-in-law." Her expression changed immediately. She tried to close the door, but I put my foot in the jamb. "I did not come to hurt you. I just want to talk." "I have nothing to talk about with you." "I think you do because you know exactly what Danielle and her family were planning, and I have evidence that you were involved." That was a lie. I had no concrete evidence, but I needed to pressure her. Sarah stayed quiet for a few seconds, then opened the door completely. "Come in, but I warn you, if you try anything, I scream and call the police." "I'm not going to try anything, I just want answers." We went into her apartment. It was small, but tidy. We sat in the living room. Sarah crossed her arms. "What do you want to know?" "Everything." "How long have you been doing this? How many families have you scammed, and who else is involved?" Sarah let out a bitter laugh. "And why should I tell you anything?" "Because if you do not, I am going to file a formal complaint against you. And this time, you are not going to come out clean like the other times. I have a very good lawyer, and I have resources, lots of them." Sarah stared at me, evaluating me, calculating her options. "Fine," she said finally. "I'm going to tell you, but not because I am scared, but because I am tired. Tired of all this crap." She got up, poured 2 glasses of water, and sat down again. "I did not plan anything against you," she began. "That was my cousin's idea and Danielle's. I just gave them advice. I explained how assets, inheritances, insurance work. Nothing illegal, just information." "Information?" I interrupted her. "Information on how to kill 2 people and keep their money. I never said to kill anyone. That occurred to them. I told them it was crazy, that it would not work, that they would be discovered, but they did not listen to me. And you did not think to report them." "Report my own family? I am not a Saint Mr. Parker, but I am not a killer either. When I knew things were getting out of control, I walked away. I stopped answering their calls. I stopped seeing them. But you knew what they were planning, and you did nothing. And what could I do? Go to the police and say what? That my cousin and her daughter were talking about hypothetical plans. I had no proof, just conversations. Are you an accomplice? Legally, no. Morally, maybe. But I did nothing direct against you." I stayed quiet, processing what she said. Part of me wanted to scream at her, blame her, make her pay. But another part knew she was right. Without concrete proof of her participation, I could not do much. "There are more people involved, right?" I asked. Sarah nodded slowly. "Yes." "Who are they?" "I cannot tell you names. If I do, I get in trouble. Big trouble. You are already in trouble, Sarah, and you know it." She sighed deeply. "There is a group. It is not a formal organization, but it functions like one. Accountants, lawyers, notaries, people who have access to privileged information about families with money. They identify targets, look for weak points, children with debts, resentful relatives, disloyal caregivers, and then they facilitate the contact. Danielle met Ryan because someone in the group told her that his family had properties. It was not a coincidence. I felt the floor open up beneath my feet. "Are you telling me my son was a planned target?" "Yes, Danielle did not fall in love with him. She just saw an opportunity." The rage I felt in that moment was indescribable. Ryan's entire relationship with that woman had been a lie from the beginning. 6 years of his life. 6 years of calculated deception. "I need names," I demanded. "I need to know who they are." "I cannot. If I talk, they hurt me. Me and my family. And if I offer you protection, if I help you testify without anyone touching you." Sarah looked at me with sadness. "Mr. Parker, you do not understand. These people have connections. They have money, they have power. They are not common criminals. They are respected professionals. If I talk, I end up at the bottom of a lake. So they are going to keep doing this. They are going to destroy more families. Probably, but I am not going to risk my life to stop them. I stood up. I had nothing else to discuss with her. If you change your mind, find me. You can still do the right thing. I doubt it, she replied, but thanks for not threatening me. I left that apartment with more questions than answers, but at least I had one certainty. This was bigger than I thought, and I needed professional help. That same afternoon, I went directly to the offices of the FBI in Chicago. I asked to speak with someone high-ranking. I was attended by an agent named Lucy Roberts, a woman about 40, serious, with a piercing gaze. I told her everything, from the beginning, Danielle's threats, the sentence, the anonymous calls, the conversation with Sarah, everything. The agent listened without interrupting, taking notes. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. Mr. Parker, what you are describing to me sounds like an organized fraud ring. It is not the first time I hear about this. We have received similar complaints in the last 2 years, but we have never been able to prove anything because victims do not want to testify out of fear. I want to testify, and I have evidence. I know, and that is valuable, but we need more. We need to infiltrate that network. We need names, bank accounts, documents, and for that we need someone on the inside to collaborate. Sarah could do it, the accountant from Evanston. Yes, she knows everything, but she is afraid. If she agrees to collaborate under witness protection, we could dismantle the whole operation. Do you think you can convince her? I can try. Agent Roberts gave me her personal card. Call me when you have something, and meanwhile I am going to open a formal investigation. This is not going to stay like this. I left the office with a strange mix of hope and anxiety. On one hand, finally, someone was taking me seriously. On the other, I knew this was just beginning. During the following weeks, I tried to contact Sarah several times. I called her, sent her messages, I even went back to knock on her door, but she never answered, until one day I received a message from an unknown number. I agreed to talk, but with conditions. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. Central Cafe in Chicago, come alone. It was Sarah. I arrived punctual to the place. She was already there, sitting at a table in the back with dark glasses and a cap. She looked scared. Why did you change your mind? I asked her as I sat down. Because they tried to kill me, she replied with a trembling voice. What, 3 days ago someone tried to run me over when I left my apartment. I jumped in time, but the message was clear. Shut up or die. Do you know who it was? I did not see the face, but I know who sent it, and that is why I am going to talk. Because if I am going to die anyway, at least let it be doing the right thing. I am going to protect you, I promise. You cannot promise that, but I can try to protect myself. If I collaborate with the FBI, they give me witness protection, right? Yes, Agent Roberts confirmed it. Then I want to speak with her, today. I called Lucy immediately. She cited us at her offices 2 hours later. That same afternoon, Sarah began to testify, and what she said was terrifying. The network had been operating for more than 10 years. They had at least 30 documented cases of fraud against families of middle, high, and upper class in Illinois, New York, and Ohio. The modus operandi was always the same. Identify families with elderly people and considerable assets. Investigate possible entry points. Children with economic problems, ambitious grandkids, discontented employees, infiltrate through personal work or romantic relationships, gain trust, access documents, and finally empty accounts, sell properties, or in extreme cases provoke accidents to accelerate inheritances. Danielle had been just another piece on that board. Her mother was an active operator. Sarah was the technical advisor. But there was more. Notaries who forged documents, lawyers who manipulated wills, doctors who certified fake disabilities. It was a perfectly oiled machine, and the leader of everything was a man named Arthur Stone, corporate lawyer, with offices downtown respected in business circles. No one would suspect him. How do you know he is the leader? Asked the agent. Because I reported directly to him. We all did. He decided which families were viable, what strategies to use, how to distribute the money. He is a genius and a monster. Do you have proof? I have emails, transfers, recordings of calls, everything saved in the cloud, in case I ever needed to protect myself. I need access to that. You will have it. But I want total immunity and permanent protection. That does not depend only on me, but I am going to do everything possible. The investigation became a federal case. Sarah went into witness protection. Ryan, Mary, and I also received temporary protection. The house remained under permanent police surveillance. For 3 months, we knew nothing. We only knew the investigation was advancing in secret, that they were gathering evidence, that they were preparing arrest warrants. And then one September morning, my phone rang. It was Agent Roberts. William, turn on the news. I turned on the TV. On every channel, the same news. Fraud ring targeting elderly dismantled. More than 20 arrested, including lawyers, notaries, and accountants. There it was, the photo of Arthur Stone, handcuffed, being led by federal agents. Also, Danielle's mother. Sarah Brooks, although she cooperated, also faced minor charges, and many other faces I did not know. The news said they had recovered more than $40 million in stolen assets, that they had identified more than 50 victims, that this was just the beginning of a trial that could last years. Ryan, Mary, and I cried, hugging in front of the TV. We had won, not just for us, but for all the families who had suffered before us, and for all those we would have prevented from suffering in the future. But the road did not end yet, because although the network was dismantled, the wounds were still open. The trial lasted almost a full year, 12 months of statements, hearings, expert opinions, testimonies, 12 months in which our life was paused, waiting for justice. But finally the day of sentencing arrived. It was a hot Tuesday in July. Mary, Ryan, Jessica, and I entered the courthouse holding hands. We were not alone. There were other families there, other victims, some older than me, others younger, all with the same look, exhaustion, pain, but also hope. The room was packed. Journalists, lawyers, onlookers, and at the front, separated by glass, were them. Arthur Stone, Danielle's mother, and 12 other members of the ring. Danielle was not there. She was still serving her previous sentence in a different facility, but her presence was felt in every word that was spoken. The judge, a man of about 60, with a deep, slow voice, read the verdict for almost 2 hours. Guilty, all of them, of charges of racketeering fraud, extortion, forgery, and in some cases attempted murder. The sentences were forceful. Arthur Stone, 25 years in prison without parole. Additionally, he had to pay a joint compensation of more than $30 million to the victims. Danielle's mother, 18 years in prison. Permanent disqualification from practicing any activity related to finance or legal advice. The accomplice notaries and lawyers between 8 and 15 years, depending on their level of participation. Sarah Brooks, for her collaboration, received a reduced sentence of 3 years in house arrest and community service. Many considered it was little. I thought so too at first. But Agent Roberts explained that without her testimony, none of this would have been possible. That justice sometimes requires sacrifices. When the judge banged the gavel for the last time, the room erupted in applause. Some people were crying. Others hugged their lawyers. I just hugged Mary. I felt her body tremble in my arms, releasing years of fear, of rage, of pain. "It is over, my love," I whispered to her. "It is over." Ryan hugged us, Jessica too, and for the first time in a long time I felt peace. But peace did not mean forgetting, nor immediate forgiveness, because the wounds those people left in our lives were not erased with a sentence. The following months were of reconstruction of therapy, of long nightly conversations, where Mary told me her nightmares and I told her mine, of sessions with a psychologist who helped us process everything we lived. Ryan took longer to heal. He carried a different guilt. The guilt of having brought Danielle into our lives, of not having seen the signs of having put his parents in danger. One night, about 6 months after the trial, Ryan came to the house. We sat the three of us in the living room, like when he was a boy, and we had those important conversations about life. "Dad, Mom," he said with a broken voice, "I need you to forgive me." "Son, there is nothing to forgive," I replied. "Yes, there is. I brought that woman to this house. I put you in danger. I almost—" He could not finish. He broke down. He cried like I had not seen him cry since he was a small child. Mary got up and hugged him. "Ryan, listen to me well," she said with a firm voice. "You did not know. None of us knew. That woman deceived us all, and what happened is not your fault. Do you understand me? It is not your fault. But I should have protected you." "And you did," I interrupted. "When I called you that day, you arrived. When you knew the truth, you acted. You defended us. That is what matters. Not what Danielle did, but what you did when you discovered it." Ryan looked up with red eyes. "Do you really forgive me?" "There is nothing to forgive, son. We love you and we are proud of you." That night, Ryan stayed to sleep in his old room, and for the first time in a long time, the three of us slept peacefully. Life, little by little, returned to a different normality, not the one before, because that one no longer existed, but to a new normality that we built with patience and love. Mary returned to smiling, inviting friends for coffee, tending to her orchid garden that she had neglected for months. I returned to my card games at the club, although now I was more selective with the people I shared personal information with. Ryan met someone new, a woman named Patricia, an industrial engineer divorced with an 8-year-old daughter. He introduced her to us with fear, with caution, waiting for our reaction. But Patricia was different, honest, transparent, down to earth. And most importantly, she was not interested in our money, she had her own. They got married a year later in a small ceremony in our garden. Seeing Ryan happy again, truly happy, was one of the greatest joys of my life. Jessica also grew closer. She came every month from Madison with the kids. Sometimes they stayed the whole weekend. The house filled with children's laughter, with races down the hallways, with shouts of, "Grandpa, look at this!" And those sounds healed things I did not even know were broken. 2 years after the trial, I received a letter. It came from the prison where Danielle was serving her sentence. The envelope had my name, written by hand with shaky handwriting. I hesitated to open it. Mary told me the decision was mine, that she would respect whatever I decided. I opened it. The letter was short, 2 pages. It said, "Mr. Parker, I know I have no right to ask you for anything. I know what I did is unforgivable. I know I destroyed your family and that I deserve every day I spend locked up here. I do not expect you to forgive me. I do not expect you to understand me. I just want you to know that I have thought a lot about what I did. At night, when I cannot sleep, I see Mrs. Parker's face. I see the fear in her eyes, and I hate myself for having caused it. I was not born bad, or at least I want to believe that. But I grew up watching my mother do these things. I grew up thinking the only way to get ahead was by taking advantage of others. And when I met Ryan at first, I did feel something for him. He was good. He was noble. But then my mother reminded me why I was there. And little by little that feeling died. I justify nothing. I'm just trying to explain. I have been in therapy here in prison. The psychologist has helped me understand many things, to see the damage I caused not only to you, but to myself. Because now at 34, I am alone without family, without a future, paying for decisions I never should have made. If one day you or your family can forgive me even a little, I will live more peacefully. But if you cannot, I understand. And I accept it. Thank you for being kind to me when I did not deserve kindness. And sorry. Sorry for everything, Danielle. I finished reading the letter with a knot in my throat. I left it on the table. Mary read it too. Then we sat in silence, processing. "What do you feel, William?" Mary asked me. I do not know. Anger, sadness, pity. All together. Do you think she is sincere? I think she wants to be, but I do not know if she really is. or if she is just sorry she got caught. Are you going to answer her? I thought about it for days. I consulted with Ryan, with Jessica, with the therapist. In the end, I decided to write a response letter. Not long, just this. Danielle, I received your letter. I read it completely. I cannot tell you that I forgive you, because that would be lying. Forgiveness is something that is built with time, with actions, with proof of real change. And from here, from this side, I cannot see if you are changing or just regretting having been discovered. But I can tell you this. I do not hate you anymore. Hate consumes, and it consumed me enough during the months I spent discovering what you were planning. Now I just want peace, for me, for my family, and yes, also for you. If you want to change for real, do it. Not for us, for you. Because when you get out of there, you will have to live with what you did, and only you can decide if you are going to be the same person or someone different. I wish you find your way. Far from ours, William Parker. I sent the letter. I never received a reply. And that is fine. I did not need it. The 3rd anniversary of that day, I entered my house and discovered everything. We celebrated it in a special way. We gathered the whole family. Ryan and Patricia with her daughter, Jessica with her husband, and the kids. Some cousins, close friends. We had a barbecue in the garden, with music, with laughter, with hugs. At one moment in the afternoon, I asked to speak. Everyone went quiet and looked at me. I want to thank you for being here, I said. 3 years ago, this family went through the hardest test of our lives. They betrayed us. They hurt us. They made us doubt everything and everyone. But here we are, together, stronger. Because we chose not to let fear and distrust win. We chose to keep loving each other. We chose to keep trusting. I raise my glass to family, the one by blood and the one we choose, to those who stayed when it was hard to stay, and to those who arrive now bringing new light. Cheers! Everyone raised their glasses. And in that moment, while I saw Mary smile, Ryan hug Patricia, Jessica play with her kids, friends laugh, I knew we had won. Not just the trial, not just the legal battle. We had won something more important. We had recovered our life. But this story does not end just with us. Because after the trial, many other families reached out. Families who had gone through similar situations. Families who did not know how to report. Families who were afraid. With the help of Agent Roberts and some civil organizations, we created a support group. It is called Protected Legacy. It is a space where older adults and their families can receive free legal advice, psychological support, and training on how to protect themselves from fraud. I give talks. I tell my story. I explain the warning signs. I teach what I learned. And every time I see someone taking notes, asking questions, thanking with teary eyes, I feel that everything we went through had a purpose. Mary also participates. She talks to the wives, with the mothers, with the women who were victims of emotional abuse within their own families. She gives them strength. She tells them they are not alone, that you can get out, that you can recover your dignity. Ryan helps with the financial part. He teaches families how to protect their accounts, how to make clear wills, how to prevent third parties from having undue access to their assets. And Jessica manages the group's social media. She shares testimonies, advice, legal information. In less than 2 years, Protected Legacy has helped more than 200 families across the country. We are not heroes. We are just people who decided that their pain would not be in vain. A few weeks ago, a 70-year-old man approached me after a talk in Madison. He had teary eyes. "Mr. Parker," he told me, thank you for telling your story, because I was living exactly the same thing. My son-in-law was pressuring me to sign a power of attorney over my house. He said it was to make things easier for me, but something did not add up, and today, listening to you, I understood that I was about to lose everything. What are you going to do? I asked him. I already spoke with a lawyer. Tomorrow I am going to cancel any document I have signed. And I am going to talk to my daughter, because if she knew, she also has to pay the consequences. Do the right thing, but do it with love, because in the end, family is the only thing we have. I will, thank you, Mr. Parker. I hugged him, and I felt that hug close a cycle. Today, while I write these lines in my head, sitting in the garden of my house, watching Mary water her orchids, listening to the laughter of my grandkids who came to visit us, I can say with honesty, I am a man at peace. It was not easy to get here. There were sleepless nights. There were days of crying. There were moments when I wanted to give up, wanted to let fear win. But I did not do it, and Mary did not either, and Ryan did not either, and Jessica neither, because we are a family, and real families do not break with betrayals, they strengthen. I learned many things in these years. I learned that money attracts the wrong people, that not all people who approach do so with good intentions, that there are whole networks dedicated to stealing, to deceiving, to hurting the most vulnerable. But I also learned that justice exists, that authorities can work when citizens organize and demand, that the brave testimony of one person can save hundreds. I learned that forgiveness is not mandatory, but that letting go of hate is necessary, that you cannot forgive someone and still free yourself from their weight. And I learned that true family is not just blood. It is the one that stays, the one that fights with you, the one that hugs you when everything falls apart. If you are listening to this story and you are going through something similar, I want to tell you something. You are not alone. Do not stay quiet. Do not normalize mistreatment. Do not ignore the signs. If someone in your family treats you badly, pressures you for money, reviews your documents without permission, makes you feel less, isolates you from other relatives, or worse yet, threatens you directly or indirectly, act. Seek help. Report. Talk to a lawyer. Install cameras. Protect your assets. And above all, trust your instinct. If something feels wrong, it probably is. No matter how much you love that person, no matter if it is your son, your daughter, your grandchild, your caregiver, love does not justify abuse. Never. A few days ago, Ryan asked me if I ever regretted having acted that day, having recorded, having called, having confronted. Never, I answered him, because if I had not done it, maybe today we would not be here. Maybe today we would be telling a very different story, or maybe we would not be telling anything. Ryan nodded, and then he told me something I will never forget. Dad, you taught me that being a man is not just providing. It is protecting. It is defending. It is standing firm when everything collapses. And that day, you stood firm. And that is why we are here. He hugged me, and I cried. Because at 65 years old, one is no longer ashamed to cry. And because those words meant more than any judicial sentence. This is my story. The story of how I almost lost everything, and how I recovered it. It is not a story with a perfect happy ending. Because the scars are still there. The memories too. And sometimes at night, I still dream of that day I entered my house and saw my wife trembling. But it is a story of survival, of resistance, of love that conquered fear. And if my story can help even just one person to detect danger in time to defend themselves, to not stay quiet, then everything we went through was worth it. Because in the end, it is not about how much money you have. It is about who you love, who loves you for real, and having the courage to defend that with everything you have. Today I look at Mary, I look at my children, I look at my grandchildren, and I know I made the right decisions. I entered my house that day and everything changed. But I did not break. We did not break. We stood up. We fought. We won. And we are still here, together, as a family. That is the true victory. May God bless you all. And may you never have to go through what we went through. But if it happens to you, remember you are stronger than you think, and you are never, never alone. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for being here. And please take care. Take care of your family. And never, never ignore the signs. Because sometimes 5 minutes are enough for everything to change. Forever.